All right, here we go. We have Darius McCrary in the house.
My man. What's happening, soul brother?
Everything good, man. Glad we finally made this happen. Been a long-time fan.
Appreciate you, man. Thank you, brother. I love what you're doing. I love the movement, man. I love the beard. You know, I played Gerald Levert, man, and I had a cold beard going, man. You know, but you know, I had to take it off for all the other stuff. You know, they try to keep you in a lane. You know, if you don't switch it up. You know.
Right. I'm not on camera, so I can just let mine just keep growing out.
That's all, you get to keep. You know what I'm saying? You get to roll however you want to, man.
That's right. That's right. Well, this is your first time here, so
Yes.
I want to get into the whole story.
Yeah.
So, you were born in Walnut, California?
Yeah, well, no, actually, I wasn't born in Walnut, man. I resided in Walnut for a long time, man. Walnut, California. But I was actually born in Southern California, man. My family's from South Central. Yeah, so you know, and my family before that was from Louisiana and Ohio, the McCrarys. But my family's from South Central, man. So I have family ties, if you would, all through South Los Angeles and Florence and Normandy, where the riots started, all through the '60s and you know, all through you know, that area, man. So you know, I'm tied in. You know, Slauson, Crenshaw, with the late great Nipsey Hussle. You know, it was his area. Jackson Limousine, Mr. Jackson, who for years has fed the homeless. Every Thanksgiving, one of the biggest food drives in Los Angeles history. So I come from all of that. My uncle still to this day has a church called Power of Love on Normandy in Manchester, man. And he's done some amazing work. Bishop Turner, he's done some amazing work throughout the city of Los Angeles. My father, who was music director for West Angeles Church of God in Christ, Bishop Charles E. Blake, who was a very substantial influence in my life. You know, growing up. So all of that, man, through all of this. So I bleed purple and gold, you know, because I'm a Lakers fan, and I'm happy to see that the Lakers are back on track. You know, we've gone through a whole lot of changes. You know, my heart was broken when Shaq left, because, you know, Shaq is my man, $100 grand, you know, and, you know, Kobe held it down and did what he had to do. But, you know, man, it was always about the terrible two, because you always had James Worthy, you always had Magic Johnson, you know, you always had Shaq, you always had Kobe. Now you got LeBron, you got AD, you know, it takes two, baby. You know what I'm saying? So, you know, Snoop Dogg and all of that, you know, LBC, you know, Compton and LBC, Dr. Dre, NWA. It was a blessing to be growing up in that era and to see the movement, you know, and all the great things that the greater Los Angeles area produced. Great filmmakers like John Singleton, rest in peace. My little brother Donovan McCrary actually was in Boys in the Hood. He played Little Ricky, you know?
Right.
Yeah, man. So we grew up an entertainment family, if you would, man. I remember it was actually one time when my mom had us all three on set. My brother, Donnie, my sister, Sarah. She'd be working on something and I'd be on Family Matters, and my mom would be running back and forth, man. And, you know, prior to that was us watching my dad and mom perform, and my dad and his brothers and sisters, the McCrarys, perform. So, you know, I grew up, man, around a lot of great talent in a great space in L.A., man. I love L.A., but I am truly a Renaissance man and a man of the world and a man of the people, which is why I'm in New York City.
Well, your dad, Howard McCrary, is actually a Grammy-nominated gospel and jazz musician. And he did arrangements for, like, Shaka Khan, Quincy Jones, Michael Jackson. What did he do for Michael Jackson exactly?
So you know, sometimes when you go into Michael's discography and you listen to these songs like Man in the Mirror, you listen to these songs like Keep the Faith, you listen to these songs like Earth Song, you know, there are a lot of voices of these big choirs, you know, and, you know, my dad was an integral part of putting together these choirs and putting together these arrangements, you know, man. And I mean, I grew up in an era, in a time where, you know, man, they used to have background session days where singers would go in on a day just to lay the background vocals. It was that serious what musicians did, you know? I mean, they even had, musicians would have load-in time to load their instruments in before they started playing, you know? And so my dad was always one of the cats, man. That's what they call them, the cats. all the cats played together. Greg Fillinganes and Bobby Watson and Ricky Lawson, rest in peace, and Indigo Chandler, and they were the cats, man. David Williams, rest in peace. These are the guys who made the music. And so my dad was either playing or arranging the voices. Him and my auntie Linda, that's what they did. My dad has discovered a lot of talent, me included. Different cats like the Winans, who is a family who is illustrious history, is synonymous with the gospel music and successful commercial gospel music. So that's what my dad did for Michael, man. And they were really friends. In fact, if it hadn't been for Michael Jackson, I wouldn't be sitting here right now, because Michael actually requested that the McCrarys come to Los Angeles to work with them. And the McCrarys, my father's group, my dad Howard, my auntie Linda, auntie Charity, Uncle Alfred, and Uncle Sam, they were the opening act for the Jacksons. So that's how my dad met my mother.
Wow, that's crazy.
Yeah.
That's crazy. Okay, so you're growing up in this family of entertainers, and then you started your Hollywood career at the age of 10, and your first film was Big Shots?
Big Shots, man. That was it. That's where it all started. And it all started because my dad was, he was working on a production where he was doing the music with Marvin Winans, the legendary Marvin Winans. That's Unc. And Chip Fields, Kim Fields' mom, she would see me backstage because I would always go to work with my dad. And this is why, ladies, if you got a child, let the daddy be in a daddy. Send your child with his father. Give him that opportunity, because you never know what blessings you're blocking if you don't allow that to happen. And I'm so grateful I used to go to these sessions with my dad, these rehearsals with my dad. Now, in retrospect, I think my mama was kind of player hating, because, the ladies love my dad. So, she figured if I send him along, I stop some of this action that this man be getting, because he was a rock star. But, yeah, man, I was hanging out backstage, and Chip Fields, Kim Fields' mother, from The Facts of Life, from Living Single, she's just a living legend herself. I love you, Kim. Auntie Chip, who was Penny's mom on Good Times. That's what y'all probably will know her from. She's the one that burned Penny with the iron. But so much more. Car Wash. She was just one of those ladies. She noticed me, and there was a role for a movie called Big Shots. She took me for an audition. And the funny part of the story is she asked my mother if she could take me. And she asked my mother if my mother was interested in me doing this. And my mother said, yeah, I'm interested if you take him. He had a chance before and he blew it, so he ain't embarrassing me no more. That's how hardcore my mama was, man. She didn't play. She was like, if you want to deal with it, you take him. And Auntie Chip did, and I got the role out of 5,000 kids that read from L.A., Chicago, New York. They picked me, by the grace of God.
Well, yeah, this was a pretty big film. It was a theatrical release, and it was executive produced by Ivan Reitman, who did Ghostbusters, Twins, Kindergarten Cop, Old School. This was like a major project, and you're actually on the poster. You're the co-star at 10 years old. How's that?
Vlad, I'm still humbled by that experience, man. Like, seriously, I look back at that, man, and sometimes I'm just filled with joy and humility, man. Like, it almost makes me want to cry, because it's like, how does this happen? Like, how do you start off with your first production? Ivan Reitman, Robert Mandel, who still to this day is one of my favorite directors in cinema history, man. Definitely my all-time top 10 favorite directors, man, in cinema history. But it was such an experience, man. And they were just the kindest men. Michael Gross, Joe Magic, Ricky Busker, you guys. By the way, Ricky, I'm going to give you a shameless plug, who was the little white boy in the movie, because it was a story about a little black boy and a little white boy, a friend movie. He has a pizza restaurant. It's called Lucifer's Pizza. It's delicious pizza. It's in LA now. I don't know if you're thinking about expanding, but if you go in there and you go get some Lucifer's Pizza, go in there and ask for Obi. Everybody go in there and ask for Obi, because he played Obi and I played Scam. But yeah, the movie premiered at the Egyptian Theater, bro. My first premiere was the Egyptian Theater. So that's why today I look at certain things, and it's not that I'm like, can I cuss?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, cool. You know, I'm gonna keep it real. You know, I mean, I just wanted to ask. You know, it ain't that I'm shitting on anything or I'm looking down on anything, but it's like when you start off at the Egyptian theater, man, and you've gone. That's just where you started. It's like you constantly want to challenge yourself to do better. You know, so it's like there are levels to this, you know, and it's just an honor, man, that I'm able to sit down and talk to people like yourself still, and to look back and say I gotta surpass what I did, you know.
Well, you were doing a few guest spots on TV, and
Yes.
then you got a role in Mississippi Burning,
Wow.
which is, I mean, that's still a very important film today.
Yo, I mean, still, once again, to this day. And look, some of them guest spots were amazing because I work with Sherman Hemsley, you know, who's a legend, man. The Jeffersons, Ernest Thomas, what's happening? You know, what's happening now? I go back that far. But yeah, Mississippi Burning, man, Alan Parker, another one of my favorite all-time directors in Mississippi, working on this film, which was a true story. Gene Hackman, Willem Dafoe. Bro, it was just like, it was so surreal. And at the time, my mom, Miss Shay, I love you so much. Even though, you know, you weren't messing with me because I embarrassed you. I know I did. I'm sorry. But I made up for it. She was just so awesome the way she handled me, you know. She actually took me to Louisiana where she was born to talk to my great-grandmothers, Grandma Laura and Ma, about their experience with civil rights and their experience, you know, dealing with what our people had come through. And so it prepared me. And this was a story that needed to be told. And it's a blessing because to this day, they show this movie in schools to students, you know? So that was amazing, man. Humbling, extremely humbling.
Oh, yeah. I mean, Gene Hackman is an Oscar winner. William Dafoe's been nominated for Oscars a bunch of times. And I just remember that one scene in Mississippi Burning where they ended up kidnapping, I think, the chief of police or something, and the black guy had him in the room. He was like, yeah, you know, this black kid got kidnapped and put in a room kind of like this one. And it's like,
dude, wasn't it great? I mean, just the way. Let me tell you some crazy history about that. And yes, that movie won Best Picture. It won Best Picture, man. 10 years old and the movie went in Best Picture. But it was just so masterfully written and so wonderfully told. And it made an uncomfortable situation that we, at the time, I really believe probably were afraid to talk about because there's a lot of history in this country we don't like to talk about a lot. And I think that in African-American culture, we don't like to talk about a lot, too. And that is systemic and it's learned behavior based on our history as well. But it made those uncomfortable moments comfortable. It made the elephant in the room bearable, you know? And that's the only way that I believe you can grow and get better, you know, as a person, as a human being, you know, black, white, indifferent, whatever. That's the only way we can grow is from our mistakes. But it made uncomfortable moments comfortable, you know? And Willem Dafoe and those guys just, God, I'll never forget, man, there was this one scene where I had to talk to Willem Dafoe and Gene Hackman, and Willem Dafoe, he asked me, how come you ain't afraid? And I asked him, how come you ain't? And I'll never forget, right before the camera rolled, you know, I mentioned to Mr. Hackman somehow or another why would, you know, I say this to these men who are here to protect us, you know, because I was a little bit uncomfortable, and he saw that. And he said, because sometimes the only way to make a difference is to be fearless, kid. He said, so you got to be fearless. You're a hero. And I said, so how do I act like a hero? And he said to me, don't act, be. I'm like, dude, as a kid soaking this up, like, whoa. And I took that with me for every role from then on, you know? So.
Well, I just want to correct you real quick because I actually looked it up as we were talking. Mississippi Burning won Best Cinematography Oscar that year. It was nominated for Best Picture,
yes,
but Rain Man won Best Picture that year.
Oh, we lost to Rain Man. My bad. You right.
Not a bad movie to lose to.
Oh, you're right. It did. Hey, speaking of, that's crazy because the gentleman who was a cinematographer on Big Shots, he did Amadeus. and he won Best Picture. Best Cinematographer for Amadeus. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, man. I mean, still a huge accomplishment. So then came Family Matters.
Yeah, man.
Okay, so you signed on to be Eddie Winslow.
I did.
And the show was created by William Bickley and Michael Warren.
Yes.
So you said that you believe that the Eddie Winslow character was written on there because of Theo from the Huxtables.
Okay, wait, Vlad, let me correct you. It's my belief, looking back, that there was a show on NBC called The Cosby Show. ABC, in all of their wisdom and their grand understanding, knew that they needed to have a show that could service the African American community and all of the sponsors that supported their network. So they created a slot for an African American family show. And just me gathering, being a historian and an absolute student of the game, listening to the stories from Bill Bickley, listening to the stories from Michael Warren, listening to Tom and Bob, they had a deal in place. And Bill and Michael, it took them 7 years to really get this deal in place. And Tom and Bob are the gatekeepers who opened the door. So based on a need for service, because that's what we do as entertainers. We are here as public servants, man. And anybody else who has it twisted, I feel for you. This is hell living in your own ego. Yeah, man, it's my belief that they created this show because they knew that there was going to be a need for that slot to be filled, and that's what happened. And so yeah, they had Theo on the Cosby Show, and there was a African American son by the name of Eddie, on Family Matters. But the beauty of this show, man, is that you could have taken the same show and you could have put a white cast in these same roles, and it would not have made a difference. Now, I do believe that because it was a black show, it was received exceedingly and abundantly beyond expectations. I will say that. Because, it's supply and demand. There were no little black boys that looked like me on TV at that time, man. Malcolm, we resemble each other, to a degree, but there was only two. When you really look back, the network was only ABC, CBS, NBC, Fox came along. There was only 4 networks back then, man. And if you think about it, back then, CBS didn't have nobody that looked like me on it back then.
Right. And on the show, Carl Winslow, who plays, who's the father character on the show, is actually a police officer. Now, how was that initially, viewed considering black people's history with the police in America?
Man, that's a deep question. I think honestly people look past that, being that we were just a family and we had storylines that applied to being family. I think that people look past it being him being a police officer, and they accepted him and Harriet Winslow, who's played by Jo Marie Payton, my mother, on the show. They looked at them as just blue-collar workers, and we were a blue-collar family. And I think that's what made us a bit more acceptable than the Cosbys, because, everybody's not going to have a doctor as a father and a mother who's a lawyer. But, you might have a father that is a construction worker, a mother who works in a deli, a mother who is a secretary or an executive assistant, a father who does work for the police department. And I think that we were able to communicate and to touch a place in the hearts of America, which belong to everyday people.
Well, the show starts off, and early in the first season, they introduce Steve Urkel.
My man.
And he kind of became the star of the show.
Hey, man, listen, when you on a rocket ship to the moon, you don't care who your pilot is. Even if he is a little 12-year-old kid, man. If he can drive that thing, drive that thing. I'm going to tell you another character who came in who wasn't supposed to be written in was Waldo Geraldo Faldo. Sean Harrison, man. He was another one. He showed up one line. and killed it. And so, you bringing it up, man. This takes me back to the days where producers would see real talent and they respected it and they were like, sign the kid. And Jay was just such, and still is, man, just such a genius, man. I might surprise a lot of people, but we still have to audition for a lot of roles. Sometimes you got to prove to people that you can still do it, and it can be difficult, at times. But Jay and I, man, we go on an audition and we run lines together, and it trips people out. We see each other on audition. He said, "Man, come on, man, let's run this." And I say, "Man, that was real cold what you did," because I know how his style is and what he does. I said, "Jay, this would be great if you took this moment here and you did X, Y, Z." And he's like, "That's dope, D. I got you." And we work together like that. We talk. I think I just put up a post today on Instagram about James Brown, and he hit me and he was like, "Man, way to transform, bro." He was just like, they don't even know. He was like, "Dude, you could do anything, dude." So Jalil's a genius, man. He was just so amazing, and just watching him work, us working together, it's just something that only comes along once in a lifetime. I mean, I'm so blessed. So blessed, man.
Well, I looked it up. A bunch of actors actually got their first start on this show, one of which is Terrence Howard.
Yes, man. Terrence, I love Terrence, man. Terrence, to this day, whenever he sees me, man, he reminds me of how I treated him when he came on set. He said, "Man, you treated me like a star from day one, man." I said, "Man, I mean, that's who you are." You could look at him back then, and you knew, man, and the way he carried himself, man, and he was just such a real brother, I never forget, man. I made sure he had his own. At one point, I made sure he had the dressing room that he wanted. Just because, man, sometimes when you're in an environment, people don't understand what we have to go through creatively. And one of the beautiful things is, some people want to be close to the stage so that they can feel the energy. Some people want to be away from the stage so that they don't have to hear what's going on so that they can get to their moment. And all of these things play an important part. Some people like to go to makeup after they put on the clothes, because then they start to feel like the character. Some people want to go to makeup right before they go on, Some people like to come to set completely ready. Everybody has different methods of moving. And one of the things that I've been blessed to do is to experience all these different entertainers before Family Matters and all these certain special moments before, even Mississippi Burning, by being around my dad, you're in a room with Michael Jackson, man. Can you imagine what the energy is like, man, when you watching Michael, man, and you're watching this man create. It's just like, brother, I can't even explain it, man. You hanging out with Rick James, Shaka Khan in a room. You're in the same room with Sammy Davis Jr. It's inexplicable. So Terrence, man, he was a real artist even back then. He took everything so serious. Vivica Fox was on the show.
Right.
Yeah. Gosh, man. Sherman Hemsley, LaWanda Page. I mean, we had some of the most amazing. My brother Donovan McCrary, who played Spider. Larry Johnson, who was Grandmama at the time. We had some of the most amazing guest star roles, man. But Terrence, I will say this, man. You never called me for an episode of Empire, man, but I won't hold that against you because I know, man, I know how difficult it has been to man that ship. We've talked about it, brother, so it's all good.
Well, Orlando Brown actually showed up on the show the last 2 seasons.
He did, man. That's baby boy, man. God, that's another one. Orlando is just so extremely talented. And man, I'm gonna say this: for all child actors who have gone through this gambit and who've been able to survive and navigate, there's some of the rockiest waters, some of the most dastardly, nasty, and difficult waters to navigate through. And I'm really proud of Orlando. I'm glad to see that he's is pulling himself together and that he's weathering the storm. Because 2 things a champion will never do: a champion will never get tired. A champion ain't gonna never quit.
Well, yeah, I mean, I've interviewed Orlando a couple of times, and I mean, he's definitely gone through some very serious issues, some very serious mental issues, drug issues. What do you mean to say, like Raven did when she was black?
I mean, I told you in the first interview. I mean, she gave me, and then I gave her some. I do, yeah.
Um, Legal issues, the whole gamut. Really, I don't know quite where he is right now. I mean, he kind of went off the deep end at one point and said a bunch of crazy stuff about us, and then he DM'd me and apologized. And I mean, I'm not quite sure where he is, but it's sad to see someone who had so much potential and was in so many really cool projects to be where he is right now.
Yeah, well, he's got some great music. Vlad, unfortunately, man, people learn after a certain point in time that this business has so little to do with your talent and so much to do with what you do with your talent. It's called show business, and unfortunately, when you are indoctrinated into this business as a child, you're just doing something that you love, man. It's like playing on a playground. You're not. It's like a dog doing tricks. You do a trick and you want a treat. You know what I'm saying? That really, I mean, I hate to break it down like that. I'll never forget when I lost my first job I got fired from. Man, it was a show called Designing Women. And ironically, Designing Women was a Warner Brothers show, and it was filmed two stages down. It was right next door to where they filmed Space Jam, and we were on the other side of that stage, Family Matters. And I'm telling you this story for a reason. I came off of doing Mississippi Burning, and an intense film, man, where people are hanging. I had my arm fractured by being kicked, man, in a scene. Man, crosses burning. Mississippi, people protesting because they didn't want the story told. Following us home to the hotel, man. And I had to go on the Warner Brothers lot and make an adjustment and be funny. And tell the jokes. And hanging around the Designing Women. Meshack Taylor and Delta Burke and all these beautiful women, Annie Potts and all these amazing people. I'm walking around the set now. I'm inside of a sound stage. We're outside in the mud, man, fire burning. I'm taking my daddy down from a tree, right? And I have to be funny. The director never once took the time to spend a moment with me to say, listen, man, I need you to talk loud. I need you to be happy. I'm shell-shocked, man. I really honestly needed some therapy after this, low-key. But back then, we didn't have bipolar disorder. We wasn't diagnosed with nothing. It would just get your ass back out there, boy. You wasn't never go, right? You was just a bad kid, right? If you had certain issues. It wasn't none of this. Man, they fired me. And you know who they replaced me with? This is the game we in. They replaced me with Shavar Ross, who ended up playing Weasel on the show years later, who was on Different Strokes for years as Dudley, right? Who had done that type of acting. But nobody took the time with me, man. Now, my mama, once again, Miss Shay, I love you. She's so cold, man. She came into the dressing room. She said, come on, baby, get your things. We're going home. I said, oh, we going home? She said, yeah. I said, okay, what time do we come back? She said, we're not coming back, baby. They're letting us go. And she let me feel that moment. Now, luckily, I had the kind of love around me coming up, in the family that I did, and it wasn't like I was the breadwinner for the family. We didn't need this job. I had the kind of mama who would allow me to experience this pain to become the man that she knew I would have to be. Everybody comes up in different environments. I'm gonna be real honest, man. Orlando had a single parent mother. He came up without a father, man. So I'm not making excuses for anybody, but all of these things play a factor. Brighton McClure on the other side, I call him the Emmy winner. That's Lil Richie. Brighton had his mother and his father. It's difficult, man. Sometimes you get caught up in the intoxication of so-called success. So, you just got to remember, man, it's all a blessing. And we're going to pray for Orlando and pray that he will continue to stay on the right track, man. And, everybody isn't able to have these relationships with outlets, with press outlets like this, man. I mean, like, you and I, we got on the phone and we talked before, man, and it's all cool, man. You know what I'm saying? I mean, it's love, but sometimes we feel attacked as well, and bottom line is, man, this is how we feed our families.
Well, when the show first started, there was a character that was played by Jamie Foxworth.
Yes.
Which was the younger sister, Judy Winslow.
Yes.
And then at one point, she just disappeared off the show, and you guys just stopped mentioning her altogether. What happened to that character?
So what happened to Jamie Foxworth, man, once again, like I just said, she was a product of her environment as well. And Kelly Williams, who's my sister on Family Matters, we go back and forth about this all the time. Kelly, I love you so much, Kelly, and I do, but you know how I feel about showbiz kids. It's hard, man, and sometimes a parent, can be a stage parent, can be your greatest advocate, or become your greatest enemy. There's so many cases where you wonder what happened to this kid, and it wasn't the kid's talent. It was the parent, and I'm not blaming Jamie's mother. I'm not saying what she did was wrong, how she handled things is wrong. But sometimes you have to be grateful that you have the opportunity to showcase your talent and wait for greater opportunities to come along, And I feel that at the time, Jamie's mother felt that her character was being underserviced. And, the producers took it as a slap in the face. And unfortunately, it put Jamie in a very difficult position. If this was in today's world, you would have been able to start a social media campaign and, drum up some type of hype and, and everything. Now stuff is going viral, and now another network will want to hire you, or they might bring you back, or there's other situations you could create. You could do skits. You could do so much. But back then, we were very limited. And there was a lot of control that the networks had and executives had, and rightfully so. I mean, these people live with these shows. Like I told you, Family Matters was 7 years before we even were materialized as the actors to play these roles. So who am I to come in and tell these people what they're going to do with their show? Who am I?
Well, after Jamie was let go from the show, she ended up not really getting a lot more roles. And she actually ended up doing adult films.
She did.
Under the name Crave.
She did. I mean, have you seen her lately? Go to her Instagram. I mean, she's Crave. I mean, I'm not trying to say anything incestuous, but I look at her sometimes and I'm like, I crave. She grew up to be hot. And look, man, we look at porn as like it's a bad thing, man. When you go to Europe, they show frontal nudity in their programming. And what they don't allow is showing you taking human life. You can't shoot somebody in a show that's over in Europe. So I think it's all about socialization. I mean, listen, who doesn't watch porn? I mean, I don't watch porn anymore because it leads to a whole lot of other things in my world. So I leave that shit alone. But there was a time when I used to love to watch it. I mean, the ladies used to love to watch it with me. And I'm proud of her, and I have seen the video, and she did an amazing job, and it is what it is, I mean, hell, I've made a couple of personal porns myself. They haven't been released yet, but if they find their way to the airwaves, you heard it here first.
Well, and then Harriet Winslow, the mother, got replaced in the last season.
Man, that was hard. That was really difficult. Jo Marie, who the show was created for. Technically, a lot of people don't know this, but it was a spinoff from Perfect Strangers. She left the show just because of differences with the producers, once again. But like I said, who am I to tell these people what they're going to do with their show, even if you created it for me, She left because of several differences, and she was replaced by a wonderful actress who I don't think ever was received the way that she should have been for her talent, because she had to come in under such adverse circumstances, bearing such a heavy load. Judy Ann was a wonderful actress, and a beautiful person. But once again, with a show that has success like Family Matters had, man, you get accustomed to a certain taste, and you want to taste those ingredients that make up that composition that you are so used to partaking in every Friday night.
Well, the show ended after 9 years.
Yep.
And although you had other gigs, this was like your biggest gig up to this point in your life. How did it feel for it to just end after that long of a time?
Man, watching Family Matters end, especially the way it ended, was one of the most difficult things that I think I ever have experienced. Um, I love those people, man. I love the cast. I love the producers. You know, it's like saying bye to family members, man. And some of them family members you never see again. It's heartbreaking, man. It's hard. And then I'm gonna be real, especially being like African American, being black, you know, in the game, you know, it don't happen like that. You don't see that. That's why there are only certain shows that are even comparable to that, you know. And it's a short list, you know. And I'm not saying anything against anybody else who's done it. I mean, we're now the third longest running African American show because of Tyler Perry's House of Pain. But you have to understand the way Tyler Perry's show was done is not even in the same atmosphere, stratosphere as Family Matters. It's not even the same. It's no disrespect to Mr. Perry. He's done an amazing job at what he's accomplished. You know, and I wish him all the best with all of his endeavors. Tyler Perry Studios is amazing. It's an amazing accomplishment. But what Tom Miller and Bob Boyette did with Bill Bickley and Michael Warren, it just doesn't happen, especially with black folks. It don't happen like that. I mean, you name me a show. I mean, what you got, the Jeffersons? What show would you put up there? The Cosby Show?
Cosby Show.
Cosby Show. The Jeffersons?
Different World, I thought was a good show.
Absolutely. Different World was amazing.
Mm-hmm.
Which one had that type of crossover success to where you could plug in white cast members and it would still be like Growing Pains?
Yeah.
What?
It was a great show.
You know,
it was a great show.
And those guys are visionaries.
You know, Jaleel White, who played Urkel, said that if you ever see me do the Urkel character again, just take me out and put a bullet in my head and put me out of my misery. But then there was talk of a reboot. So which one is it?
This is the thing, man. Everybody has to understand about this. We're never going to be able to go back and give you guys that feeling that that you had, because we were all moving together in a certain point in time. We were all growing together, you know. So we're gonna have to touch your heart in places that speak to where we are now as adults who've grown up together. We grew up, you know. I mean, you grew up with me. Only difference is I couldn't see you, so there's an affinity, you know what I'm saying? But what it does is it allows me to embrace you because of your empathy, because of your enthusiasm. It allows me to embrace those fans. So I think with Jay, man, Jay don't want to disappoint nobody, because what he did is just, bro, like, ain't nobody ever did it. That dude, man, that dude played 3-4 characters, man. That dude, man, that's one of the baddest dudes, man. That dude, one of the baddest dudes, man, as far as the game is concerned, and it's so underappreciated, man, in my opinion. You know, but it's a marathon, not a sprint. So, you know, we still got a lot more to run, I believe. So I don't think that Jay wants to disappoint anybody by putting them suspenders on and not being able to make you feel what he made you feel. So, you know, we are in talks, some things that could possibly happen. You know, I think that one day y'all pulled up on me. I was on Sunset, and I was headed over to see J-Dub. You know, that's what I call him, you know. He said we too old for nicknames, but, you know, I say, you know, some things never change. So I was on my way to see the Dub, you know what I'm saying? And we were talking about working some things out, you know, and then Sean and Kelly and myself, you know, Cherry Johnson, that's my boo, you know what I'm saying? You know, that's the wifey. So, you know, Cherry, she on board regardless. She ain't got no choice. You know what I'm saying? So we working on some things. It wouldn't be a reboot. It'd be a remix.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, the show is currently streaming on Hulu. And, you know, when you look at, for example, The Cosby Show, all the Cosby Show kids, from what I understand, Bill Cosby made sure they had really good deals coming into the show with residuals and royalties and everything else like that. Did you sign a good deal when you were on that show to the point where you're still making money off that show today, or was the deal not so great?
Hey, man, all I can tell you is life is good, man. That's all I can tell you is life is good. We didn't have a Mr. Cosby looking over us. We walked into a situation that created some serious opportunity. My mother did the best that she could. She was amazing. I mean, I'm now with some great representation. Shout out to Andrew Ruff, who's just an amazing guy. My squad, the whole squad. But it was a different time back then, but I can tell you life is good. And that's why I just continue to work, man. I feel blessed. I just played James Brown on American Soul, which is something I never, ever thought would have happened. And this is why you have to let people do their jobs. Robbie Reed, I love you. Robbie Reed, she cast me in as Muhammad Ali in the Don King story. She cast me in Next Day Air. And she always puts me in Kingdom Come as Royce. She always puts me in these roles, and I'm like, I just don't see it. And there's sometimes where I've talked myself out of roles. When Robbie's wanted to see me, I'd be like, Robbie, I don't want to waste your time. I don't want to waste my time. I'm not finna come in here and come do this. There's so many other roles I'm sure I would have got if I would have just showed up. But she sees it. Casting directors like Leah Daniels Butler, who's another amazing. She cast Empire and Star and so many others. She's Coming to America too. You didn't let me be African in that, but it's okay. I still love you anyway. I could have been African. Yeah.
Well, I just want to have one more question in terms of like this era of your career. There was a TMZ interview where you said that you were inappropriately touched by a Hollywood executive. I assume as a child. Can you talk about that at all?
Man, this is the thing, Vlad. I feel like when I said that statement, I was defending a very good friend of mine who was under some serious fire and some allegations. And
who was that? Who were you defending at the time?
I'd rather not really speak on him.
Okay.
If you must know, Charlie Sheen for president. That's all I can say. But anyway, okay. That's my dog. And it was some serious allegations going around, and it was a lot swirling. And I knew some things about some people, and I knew where some bodies were buried, and I wasn't gonna speak on it. And all I was saying is, if you're in this business, we've all at some point been inappropriately touched. At some point, even if it's a hug, even if it's a back rub. I don't know what you're thinking when you're rubbing my back. You could be hugging my back and be like, oh my God, this big strong buck. Oh Lord Jesus, Lord, if I could just and I'm oblivious. I'm thinking this is a great person. They're gonna produce something for me. That's inappropriate. I don't know what's on your mind. So looking back in retrospect, I do remember a situation where I was touched a certain way. Being too young to decipher, I didn't pay it any attention. Years later, now that I'm thinking about it, I was touched in a different situation, and I remember what that touch was. Now, I never told my mother. I never said anything about it, because you didn't. And that's as far as I'm going to go on it, I mean, I might, one day write a book and put more details, but I do feel like this. I feel like that happened to me years ago, and if I were to bring it up now and go after that individual for my justice, I don't think ruining that person's life would be right in my situation, under my standard of living, because I was able to make it through. Now, some people crumble. Some people don't make it through. It ruined some people's life. Has it hurt me? Yes, it has. Would I like to go back and find this individual who is still a very successful executive and have a moment and talk with them and ask them what that meant? I would like to do that. I would like to do that. But I'm not going to handle it publicly. I'm not going to ruin somebody's life publicly.
Okay,
Hollywood's
so
been good to me,
Okay, so this is a male that touched you.
I decline to stay.
Okay. Fair enough.
But I've been touched inappropriately by males and females. And this female executive has done some things. I decline to state.
Okay. Well, after the show ended, you continued to do work on a regular basis. You were on the NBC show Committed. You were on Eve. You did the Kingpin miniseries. You mentioned the Don King, Only in America. You were in Kids in the Woods, Vampires, Los Muertos. You took over Shamar Moore's role in Young and the Restless.
Young and the Reckless. We've been pretty reckless too.
Young and the Reckless. I love
it. It's appropriate.
That was kind of funny.
I did Young and the Restless, man. And shout out to Christophe St. John, who's one of the best people God ever created, who passed away top of the year, man. It was just heartbreaking. He's still to this day the longest African American leading male to star in a television series, and it was just a gem of a guy, man. Just an amazing dude.
Right, you were also the voice of Autobot Jazz in the Transformers.
Yes.
So you were just getting work.
Yeah, man, and that's what I'm saying. That's why I say when I look back, man, I focused on the work, and I was able to make it through, man. And it's just been a blessing, being a part of all these great projects, man. I mean, working with Michael Mann, who directed Transformers, and Mr. Spielberg, man. It's just like I said, man. I mean, the only person I really like to compete with is myself. I look back and I continue to say, how can I surpass any and everything that I've ever been blessed to do?
Well, you saw Rick James for the last time, and there's kind of a story around that. Can you talk about that?
Yeah, man. Rick, God, he was just so special. And I used to call him Papa Rick. He's my godfather, man. I'm his illegitimate godson. And you ask, how do you become an illegitimate godson? It's because your parents are like, no. He's like, I'm Rick James, he's mine. So we were hanging out, man. He was working on this session with Kanye West, man. And it was the last recording session, and I was actually doing the show Committed. And we finished the session. He wanted me to come back to the house, and he was sitting down, man, on the floor, and he told me I was going to tell this story. And he asked me to stay. He was telling me, talking to me like he used to always tell me about the producing the Temptations and all the great days of Motown and working with Smokey and, Prince, and just telling me all of his stories, he used to, which I used to soak up, and giving me great advice too, because he never wanted to see me make the mistakes he made. And he was sitting on the floor drinking his milk, which he used to like to do. And he said, come on, just hang a little bit longer. And I said, Pop, I got to go, man. I got this new job. I got to be on time. He said, oh, you're a star. You're fine. You'll be fine. And I said, Pop, I got to go, man. I got to get on in so I can get ready. He said, all right, fine. Leave me then. He said, you're going to tell everybody about this story one day. You're going to tell them how he was sitting on the floor drinking his milk, and he asked me not to leave, and I left. And I said, why would you do that? Why do you do that kind of shit, man? That's not cool. I said, I don't want to hear that. He said, just go. He said, you got your room here. And so I went back over to him, and I grabbed him, and I held him, I kissed him on his forehead. And next morning, I was on set, and ironically, my mother had Sean Harrison, Waldo. He was with me. And because he's a great acting coach, man, brilliant. He was actually coaching me on this job. She told him to keep me away from the TV and get my cell phone so nobody could get a hold of me. Because this is before cell phones. You were able to text or really pass messages. You remember them days. And somehow or another, the young lady I was dating at the time, who was very close with the family, it got a hold of me somehow or another. I was very close with Rick's family as well, which is deep, man. And he was gone, and that's the story I'm left with. Thanks a lot, Papa Rick.
Well, I guess you had said that the Dave Chappelle skits were pretty much spot on.
Yo,
When you're
man.
talking about Rick James.
Yo, man, he was a trip. That dude was a trip, man. I mean, him and Charlie had an amazing relationship. Him and Eddie had an amazing relationship. And that was him. I mean, he used to just, I was laughing. I was on the phone with Val Young. She was the original Mary Jane girl. She sang all the vocals for Tupac to Live and Die in L.A. She was his one of his first artists. She did all his background vocals. And we were just cracking up, at just the stuff that he used to get into. But that was him. That was him, man. From a whole other place, man. That was when entertainers were allowed to be. We were allowed to just be, man. It's crazy when you think of now. We got all these rules, all these regulations, and you want me to stand up on a stage in front of 20,000 people, project my voice, take you to a place that makes you feel something, talk to all the musicians, play these instruments that produce this different language, and then you want to tell me to live in this box. You want me to sit in front of a camera, stand in front of a camera, act as if I'm somebody else in a scenario that's being created from another person's mind, make you feel something that you couldn't feel unless otherwise you were directed, and you want me to live in this box. And one thing about it was Papa Rick never lived in a box. Him, Bobby Womack, who's one of the greatest soul singers to ever touch the planet, they didn't live in a box. Michael Jackson didn't live in a box, And this is when these entertainers were allowed to inspire. And I think moving outside that box is what inspires everyone else, to be able to reach beyond what they're told they're capable of grasping.
Well, I guess there was a story about him running into Eddie Murphy's fountain.
You've done your homework, Vlad. You're good. Yes. He tore that fountain up, man. We were at Eddie's house, and it was after one of Eddie's big premieres, and it was winding down. And the crazy thing about this story is he was completely sober. Matter of fact, we were drinking O'Doul's beer. I was drinking O'Doul's with him because he used to like to show me that you don't have to party, all the time to have a good time. So we were drinking O'Doul's beer. I'll never forget this. And so we were leaving, and he had this brand new fly ass Mercedes, man. It was one of the big ones. And he said, we were leaving. We said bye to Eddie. And Eddie just such a gracious host. He was sitting down. He finally decided to eat his food, And so he was sitting down. It was a good night. Everything came off right. And so Papa Rick says to me, give me the keys. I'm going to drive. And I looked. I said, huh? He said, I'm going to drive. I said, well, Papa Rick, because he had a stroke, and it left half one side of his body paralyzed. So, man, he said, I was driving before you were a thought. Give me the keys. So when he got like that, I used to be like, all right, man, fine. So it was him, me, and his daughter, Ty James. We were in the car. Man, he threw the car in reverse, and he started the car, threw the car in reverse. Next thing I knew, just and Eddie, it was this beautiful courtyard, beautiful fountain. Looked like something that came from the Venetian, the real Venetian, something that came from Italy. He must have got this shit from the Vatican. It was just gorgeous. It had these beautiful ladies holding up. And, man, all I remember was water. Just water. Like we had driven the car underground, man. And so he put the car, moved the car a little bit forward to get off a little bit of the rubble. The car was kind of stuck, so water was still coming down. He gets out the car. He looks around. He says, Ty gets out. He says, everybody good? We're like, yeah, we okay. He says, good. Quick. Get back in the car. Let's go.
Wait, so he just drove off after hitting Eddie Murphy's fountain?
No, man, no. I honestly wish we would have, because I think Eddie really held it against me. And really, so Ty goes, Daddy, we can't do that. And so he goes, all right, you're right. Come on. And he says, come on, D, let's go talk to Eddie. I said, huh? I said, let's? And us? Nah, man, that's on you. You want to drive. I gave you the keys. That's on you. He said, bring your black ass. So we go inside. Eddie's just cool, man. Eddie's one of the coolest cats you could ever be around. Like I'm talking about, he's just so cool all the time, man. You know, nothing really rattles him. You go back inside and he's sitting down eating his food, and he comes back inside and Rick says, Eddie, something terrible happened. And Eddie stops eating, and he goes, what did you do? It's cool as shit. He's like, what do you mean, what did I do? There was a situation, it was this car that came through the first gate, picked up speed through the second gate. It was a chick, she looked like she was driving, she looked really mad. She was really mad, man. She came in, she just demolished the gate, spun out, turned around, did a donut, and flew back down the driveway. And Eddie's so cool, man. He says, Rick, but never looked up. Did you tear up my fountain? Rick said, what? He said, did you wreck my fountain? He goes, well, Darius let me drive. And Eddie's just, once again, was so cool. He told me, man, get the keys from him. Don't ever let him drive again. He said, Rick, you know, if this was my new house, I would have shot you in your good leg. And I looked at him, I said, Eddie, I'm sorry, man. I said, damn, man, where's Charlie when we need him, huh? Charlie went there that night, and we rolled out.
Hilarious. Hilarious, man. I wish I would have gotten to interview him before he passed. Very
He
unfortunate.
would have loved you. He would have loved you, man. He was just so, just unequivocally voiced, man. You know, I learned a lesson. You know, talk about living out loud. My life is an open secret. You know, because of Rick James. You know, it is what it is. It ain't how you start; it's how you finish.
Well, at one point you started dating Karrine Steffans,
I did.
a.k.a. Superhead.
Hey, man, that's Karrine. We call her Karrine. Yes.
Karrine.
Yes.
Well, I actually produced the Kiss and Tell documentary that you were in.
You did that.
I was the producer, yeah. I wasn't the director, but the original interviews came from me and the concept came from me.
Right.
I
So y'all came to the studio to interview me when I made the statement that sometimes you end up with an optorectal neurorectomology. And that's when your brain get crossed with your eyelids and you have a shitty outlook on life.
That ended up being a very tumultuous relationship for you.
Yeah, man. I'm going to tell you this, Vlad. I really feel like this. In Hollywood, I feel like celebrities should date celebrities, period. And it took me years to arrive at this conclusion. I don't care if it's an actor dating a singer. I don't care if it's a model. You cannot be in, especially now where Hollywood has gone with social media, you know, because, I mean, we were just at the beginning stages of things going viral at the time. And, you know, man, once again, when someone reaches a certain level of success and all of a sudden they find themselves flailing because they're not getting the attention, a lot of times people will do anything to maintain that attention. You know, and now we call it clout chasing. You know, it was a very tumultuous relationship because we were young. And, you know, I have a certain je ne sais quoi, you know, that has been known to affect the fairer sex in certain ways to where reactions, you know, can be adverse. I mean, but you have to understand, man. I mean, look, if you give a woman a little bit of money, she gives you a home. You know, you give her a little bit of food, you know, she gives you a meal. You know, you give her, you know, you give her your body, she produces a baby. So if you give her any shit, you're gonna get a shit storm. You know, and at the time, man, I wasn't aware enough to understand that beautiful women are like exotic cars. You know, they take a lot of maintenance. I mean, you get a Rolls Royce, man, the brake job is $10,000 alone. You know, so you can't just run a Rolls Royce, you know, if you're not expecting to pay for that brake job. You know, so it was a very expensive and tumultuous situation, man, and you know, it's pretty much the reason why I don't drive a Rolls Royce to this day.
Well, you had a quote, and it was mentioned in the documentary. You said, if you could turn a hoe into a housewife, Karrine would be the one.
Pretty much, yeah, man. Because, you know, at the time, I feel this way about most women who have had difficult walks of life. They're very appreciative. Most women are very appreciative when they do come across something that is worth having, and they'll fight for it and they want to keep it because they know what the alternative is. You know, like I said, they take scraps and they make a meal. You know, they take a little bit of money and they make a home. You know, so you know, Karrine had all those qualities, man. The thing that was difficult for us is, like I said, you know, it's just hard for some people to turn it off. You know, and you have to decide when you're going to allow yourself to be opened up to the public and when you're going to take time to work on yourself and you know, and man, it's just hard. You look at all the relationships, you know, that are put out there in public. I mean, like a couple as strong as Linda Hogan and Hulk Hogan, you know, as many years as she had been with him through all of the WWF to now the WWE and this legend, they couldn't even do it, man, you know? And the business is just really a trip. It'll make things very, very, very difficult, man, where relationships are concerned, which is why I really believe that entertainers should be with entertainers, period.
Well, yeah, I mean, one of the things that stood out during those interviews in the documentary was the Bobby Brown story, where you actually ran into Bobby Brown, and he was like, "What are you doing with her?" You know, the same thing you were doing with her. Like,
Man,
I just found that line kind of funny.
You good, man. You do your homework. You good. You know what's so funny about that? I was just talking to George Clinton about that night. We were actually at a George Clinton concert. He was another one of my greatest mentors. And everybody was so shocked when I walked into the room with her. And that really did happen. Everybody was like, whoa. I mean, she was looking hot, man. I mean, she's a gorgeous woman, man. She's beautiful. I mean, she's amazing in so many ways. Look, what attracted me to Karrine wasn't her body. It was her mind. So you put that kind of mind into that kind of body, it's dangerous, man. I mean, we fell in love, man. We were heading 95 going south, man, on an interstate, man. I mean, you know, it was amazing, man. And Bobby tried to warn me, and we were laughing about this, George and some of the guys. And I did say to him, I said, I'm doing the same thing you was doing with her. You know? But you know, and it's so funny. Sometimes you look at a situation that doesn't work out for others. It doesn't work out well for others, and you think that you may be able to navigate through it. You know, but I think that some people are better alone.
Well, yeah, I interviewed her a couple times after the, you know, way later. You know, she was mad at me over the documentary, but we talked it out, and I basically said it's nothing personal. And, you know, we kept it moving. We did a couple interviews after that. And she's a beautiful woman. She's very smart. And she's kind of like one of the fellas. So it kind of puts you in a certain kind of, you know, your defenses get kind of lowered around her. And I could see how someone could end up kind of getting caught up with the whole Karrine thing. But you also have to think about what her background is and the types of books she puts out. And, you know, you kind of assume, hey, if I do anything with her, I'm probably going to end up in a book. So I think I'm good.
But I was okay with that, though, because you have to understand, I've been on display my whole life. I had braces in front of y'all. I had bad haircuts in front of y'all. I had family members die, and I had to go on and perform in front of y'all. It's all kinds of stuff. So I was on display my whole life, so I really wasn't scared of it. The thing for me, man, was, look, here's the bottom line, Vlad. I'm a church boy when it all comes down to it. I'm a church boy who has, you know, family members from all walks of life. And, you know, I'm a musician, you know, so I've never been a judgmental person because I've seen people come into to church and make a complete transformation, which is why I believe that you can turn a hoe into a housewife, because I've witnessed it. I've watched hoes become first ladies, low key. I've watched pimps become pastors. I've watched some of the coldest killers become the first deacons. I've watched gangsters off the street become pastors and have their own flock. You know, it was my uncle's story, who has the church still to this day. You know, so, you know, man, I really believe that, you know, Karrine was a victim of circumstance who would revert to that place of comfort whenever she felt threatened. And, you know, man, I knew that it could turn into something. But, you know, like you said, she was the homie you could smash. And that's how we got caught up. We met, man, because she played a practical joke on me one night. I was in this session. I was producing some vocals on this artist who I ain't gonna talk about. But she played. I fell asleep because the artist was taking forever to drop these vocals, and I just kind of just gave up at some point. And I woke up and my nails had white out on them. If you ever try to get white out off of your nails, this is not nail polish. You have to use like acetone. You have to use like, man, and she got all of them. All of them. You know, man, so look, man, you know, I grew up in church, like I said, man, you know, and I'm a Rasta at heart, you know, so I'm like let live, you know, and, you know, pass the joint, you know, and keep everything airy. But I'll tell you this, I don't smoke no more because it impairs your judgment.
Well, I just want to cover one more thing before I let you go. You actually have a nonprofit called FathersCare.
Yes.
And which focuses on fathers. You have 2 children of your own?
I actually have 3.
3. Sorry.
Yeah. I got a little baby. I have Zoe. And there's Zach. Yeah, those are my kids. And you know, man, my experience with my son has led me down a very difficult road, and it's been a really ugly experience of what the court system can do to men who really want to be in their children's lives, man. You know, the system wasn't broken; it was designed this way. And what we try to do is we try to work with fathers, excuse me, to help them navigate through those rocky waters. There's an advocate. Her name is Kenya, NK or KN on Instagram and on Facebook, and it's a cold-blooded hustle, man. Child support is for to support the child, not for failed relationships. And we've just witnessed how fathers have been moved out of the house since the welfare system. I was a producer on a documentary called "Where Are All the Fathers?" Where are all the fathers? You know, and now we're in a society now where it's very difficult for a man to be a man. You know, we're seeing, you know, so much before our very eyes where the protector is being removed from the home, you know, and that's what we try to do, man. We try to make sure that, you know, we can advocate, we can help fathers deal with the depression that comes along with the anxiety that comes along with being separated from your child. We go through just as much, you know, they as women, but we're told, man up, be a man, you know. Well, what do you do with these emotions, you know? So, you know, that's what we try to do, man. We try to work with dads, man, because dads have feelings too.
Well, yeah, I've interviewed a number of men on my show who really went through a nightmare to try to get custody of their children. Like, for example, I interviewed Matt Barnes recently, and I don't know if you know about the whole Gloria Javon thing,
Absolutely.
but
I'm aware.
all that escalated in this crazy school parking lot fight where he ended up getting full custody of his twins. And he said it cost him about $1 million to do it. And what he said was interesting was, you know, she got arrested over the incident. He got full custody, but fast forward to today, she never went to prison, and now they have shared custody. Whereas if it was the man in that particular role, he would have definitely gone to prison, and he would not have any custody probably for the rest of his life.
Like I said, I'm in the front passenger door. I open up the back door and walk around that door, and Carter jumps out. I reach across the car because Isaiah's sitting behind the driver, which is Gloria, to reach for Isaiah's hand, and all of a sudden she slams, like she puts the car in reverse, and like the car door hits me. I lose contact with Isaiah. I kind of stumble for a second. Isaiah falls back in the seat. I'm like, yo, like, what the fuck are you doing?
She tries to drive the car as you're like halfway in the car.
She tries to put the car in reverse and back out. So keep in mind that this is 2 lanes of traffic at 3 o'clock where there other kids are being picked up. Kids are walking, other cars are moving, all this kind of shit. I tell you, man, it's not set up for us to get our kids because it costs me a whole lot of money. You know what I mean?
How much do you spend? Legal fees?
Over $1 million.
Whoa. You spend $1 million
because there's other legal costs that I'm currently going through with her.
Absolutely. And this is where it is unfair, especially in today's world. You can't have it both ways. You can't want to be independent, want to be, on the front lines, want to be, I'm woman, hear me roar, and then also at the same time saying I'm the weaker vessel. Oh, it doesn't work. There has to be some real balance, and the system doesn't give us any balance. And Matt Barnes is a real soldier for being able to fight the way that he did. But everybody doesn't get those opportunities and those breaks. Everybody doesn't have the financial means to go into court. And to fight. Because that's what happens in court. Let's face it. You're going in, and the lawyers are the ones who really end up winning. The children don't win. The lawyers win. That's who makes all the money. I got money still on books with attorneys now in situations that I was able to navigate through. With my daughter, we have a great relationship. And I just want to just say Tammy's an amazing mother. Amazing woman, and we went through whatever we went through, but we were able to be wise enough to say this will affect this child's future, and we would rather have this money here for her future, for her trust fund versus child support, which is another I hate to say this, but I'm gonna keep it real. It's another systemic tool that is used in the urban community. Because we don't even have the knowledge of most of us of what a trust fund is, but we know how to get somebody on child support. It's crazy, bro, and I'm just keeping it real, But we made an agreement, and we're working past all of that, and I look at what it's doing for my daughter, who's just so amazing, and big ups to her mother for being wise enough to understand that,
Well, yeah, I just had Tito Ortiz on my show, the MMA fighter, and he had twins with Jenna Jameson, the adult film star.
Yes.
And he said that it cost about $500,000 with him, but he's had full custody of his kids for the last, 6 years, and she hasn't even seen her kids in those last 6 years.
In 2011, actually 2012, I ended up getting a restraining order and getting full custody of my children, and I've been a father since, and she hasn't been around in 6.5 years. And having full custody of my kids, she just walked away, and it's sad, but at the same time, she's a victim of her own self, and I try to help somebody I couldn't help, and it took me a lot of physical therapy, rehab to really get through those things with a therapist, and it's the things you got to do as a parent.
And it's just, it always gets painted a certain type of way. For a man to get custody of his children is almost unheard of.
It's almost impossible. Now, this was so cold-blooded about it with my son. I had full custody. I had custody of my son. My son lived with me. And once again, being in the media, I taught him how to write, how to read. He was reading at 2 years old. Taught him how to walk, talk, all that. And being that my life, once again, is in the public, we're able to use certain things in the public because it's unfortunately, we're in a society today where somebody can make an allegation and you have to spend all of your resources trying to prove that the allegation has no merit. It isn't innocent until proven guilty anymore. Story comes out, it's circulating, and you're stuck with that. So it's very difficult and almost impossible. But to all you fathers out there, you got to just keep fighting and understand that the opportunity will present itself. You know, like Matt. You know, I mean, that was just a break that happened because a lot of times there is a certain sense of entitlement that comes along with being a custodial parent, unfortunately. And a lot of times it's used to gloat, to taunt, and to take advantage and to bully the non-custodial parent. You know, so this is something that's very close to my heart. And anybody that's watching this interview, you reach out to me. If you can't get to me, reach out to Vlad. I'm all about that life because it's about the real best interests of children. It has been said that it's better to raise successful men than to repair broken children, broken individuals. And we're all operating out of brokenness. But we want to try and avoid the brokenness and to raise successful individuals. That's what's going to make this world a better place. That's what's going to make a proper contribution to humanity. And you ain't got to be on stage to make a proper contribution to humanity. You ain't got to be a singer, an actor. You could be raising the next president. You could be raising the next civil rights leader. You could be raising the person that cures cancer. The person, you could be raising. That's it, because it takes every kind of people, And so I think that parenting is probably one of the most important positions on the planet, and we have to take it very seriously. And it takes a village to raise a child. I'm where I am because of my village.
Well, Darius McCrary, man, appreciate you telling your story. I think it's a very important story with ups and downs and successes and also downfalls. And it's really, I think, in this world where everyone wants to be an actor, everyone wants to be on TV, everyone wants to be in movies, it's just very important to kind of see the steps involved to actually achieve that and then also to maintain that, because it's very easy to be a one-hit wonder in any profession, but to actually continue to do it year after year, decade after decade like yourself, that's where you can see where the real talent actually lies.
Man, thank you, my brother. I really appreciate that. That means a lot, man. It really does. Thank you for the opportunity, man. It's always a pleasure to be able to sit down, with tastemakers, man, and people like yourself who really do understand both sides of the gambit. Because it is a gambit that we're running, man, And sometimes I feel like Eddie Murphy in The Golden Child. I got the knife. Now turn on the goddamn lights. And other times, I feel like, where's Waldo? But we're going to keep on pressing, man. I feel like the hardest working man in show business today, and by the grace of God, man, we'll continue to bring smiles to faces and change hearts and lives.
No doubt. Until next time.
My man.
Peace.
Right on. Peace.